Well, let's bring in Danie Barefoot to our show, or should I say, U.S. Olympian Danie Barefoot. How cool does that sound to you?
Oh, I'm gonna have to get used to it. To be honest with you, it's not something I'm used to right now.
You compete in the skeleton, which I think is a sport many people do not understand, especially in a part of the country where sled sports aren't exactly popular. We don't. I mean,
Mhm.
is the nearest course Lake Placid in New York?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one that we have is Park City near Salt Lake.
So how does one get? So how does some? And for those who don't know, Dan is from Johnstown.
Mhm.
You I presume grew up, went to a local high school. You know, you've never really. It's not like you were born here and moved away. So how does one get involved with sled sports when you're from Johnstown?
Kind of a roundabout. Eventually, I will connect it way back to my childhood. But before we get there, after going through college, I wanted to go for architecture. Mind was focused. We're doing school. We're not going to do sports. I kind of gave up baseball, that kind of thing. After I graduated, I was working my first job. I thought, man, this is easy. Like college is so much harder. Like I was balancing club stuff, and then all of I was pulling all nighters doing work. And here I am, like kind of going home at 3:30 in the afternoon. I finished all my work already. I was like, go to the gym, eat. What else is there to do? So I was looking up sports, but it was the winter at the time, because like you graduate, summer, early fall, and then by the time you start working, it's like fall, winter. And I'm like, all right, what is there to do in winter? So I kind of Googling like winter sports, and a list of Winter Olympic sports pops up. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not at all what I was talking about. Now, but out of curiosity, I start scrolling down the list, and I clicked on bobsled skeleton. And I say this all the time. Thank you for bobsled being alphabetically near the top. And I started reading about it. I'm like, you can try out for this kind of thing. So I kind of kept it to myself, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna train for this, and then in a year or two, I'm not gonna say anything, but I'll try out, and we'll see what happens. And how things happen. You go to a tryout, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I made it to the next step. You go down the ice for the first time, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually kind of liking this, and I'm not that bad at it. And here I am 9 years later.
So let me understand this correctly. Out of boredom, you
Yeah.
went to Google, decided, hey, maybe I could do that. I'll
Mm,
give it a whirl. Trained for a couple years, went to some one-off tryout, and step by step, you
yep.
joined the U.S. team, and then this year qualify for your first Olympics.
I would love to say there was a grand plan. I think it was more just a challenge. I just wanted to, I was like, you know what? I want to see if I can do this. And every step of the way, it kind of pulls you in a little bit more. You're like, oh, okay, I just kind of got seventh in this race. I wonder if I should try again next year. And then you come back and you win a race, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to try again next year. And, before you know it, you work your way up the ranks, and you're facing Olympic medalists. And when you start, at that level, you're like imposter syndrome, to the T. You're like, these guys are so good. This is not at all what I am right now. And then once in a while, you'll have a training run and you'll beat them. You're like, oh, they are human, and it kind of makes the sport real. And then you realize that there's all these small pieces that go into winning, especially at the elite level. It's 90% mindset. There's so much just about believing in yourself so much that your body relaxes, and that's what makes skeleton go fast.
Maybe I missed this when we were talking at first, but where were you living at the time when this all came about?
I was at my first job in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So I had moved a little bit east compared
Okay.
to where I was, and then decided I was going to train for it. In the process of life and training and stuff, I ended up taking another job down in Orlando. So I had moved to Orlando, still training for it, and then after about another year living down there, I went to a tryout in Bradenton, and yeah,
A skeleton tryout in Bradenton, Florida.
yeah, they
I don't
had
know how that works. How there's no ice in Florida.
no. So I mean, what I don't know if it's irony or not, but they look a lot in the South for bobsled and skeleton athletes.
Track athletes.
I think so, and I was not that, but I was fast enough apparently, and I scored enough points, so I worked my way up.
So what does a tryout look like? Since I'm assuming you're not using the sled in a
Uh,
tryout.
Yeah, so the beginning parts, they're basically just looking for athleticism. They would they would set up timing eyes, electric timing eyes, out to 45 meters, and they would time your 15, your 30, your 45, and then one of those times would be the split between your 15 and your 45, which they called the fly. There was a standing broad jump. There was an underhand shot put. You had to throw like a 20 pound cannonball, basically, as far as you can. And then you rank everything on a point scale, and if you scored enough points, they brought you to the next round. I was the only one in that tryout actually that made it to the next round out of all the guys there. And so in the next round, it happens to be in Lake Placid Olympic Training Center. I'm like, what's happening? you know
So you go to the U.S. Skeleton Combine. That's what we're going to call it. It's
Yep.
the combine, the NFL Combine for skeleton. And you advance. And so now here you are, 2 years into the process? And
Yeah,
you've never touched a sled, correct?
correct.
So now you go to Lake Placid, and this is where they teach you how
Yes.
to actually go down the course and be on the sled.
Yep. And it's funny because obviously everybody at that point is pretty athletic. If you made it through that first cut. And I'm looking around me, and I had that same kind of feeling that I was saying before. Like I had like this imposter syndrome. Like, man, I don't know how much you guys know about track and field, but Ryan Bailey was at this tryout. One of the top 10 fastest men all time. We're probably the fastest U.S. outside of Tyson Gay. There were ex NFL cornerbacks that were there. I'm like, I was this dude that was like sitting in an office cubicle, like drawing, like city plans. And here I am, like competing against these guys. But yeah, the funny thing is, you can have the most freak athlete, and then they'll take a run down the ice track, and a lot of them will be like, hell no, I'm not doing that again. And then others are like, yeah, let's do it again. And I happen to fall kind of in between those two.
Was it terrifying, the first run?
Your top speed from the bottom, because they don't start you up at the top. Your top
Sure.
speed probably is like 30 miles an hour. But when you're laying on your chest with your chin, like that feels fast. And then, but eventually you take some runs, you kind of get a little arrogant, and the coach kind of sees like, oh, you guys think this is an easy sport, huh? And so they take you up a little bit higher on the track, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. These big guys, like massive arms come in, and they're just black and blue all over because they're bouncing off walls. It humbles you real quick.
So the last Olympics 4 years ago, you didn't make the team. You were on the second team. You were the backup crew, so to
Correct.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I imagine that of itself was such a pinch me moment, because here you are again, someone who was sitting in a cubicle drawing up city plans, and now you got Team USA across your shirt.
Oh, absolutely. Every step of the way has just been another like renewed appreciation on what's happening. Um, what I'm doing in my own little bubble, but then realizing how many more people are supporting from the outside and how much bigger things are growing. Just today, the amount of people that have contacted me has been incredible. Yeah.
So this year's process to qualify for the Olympics, what did that look like? And was there ever an expectation for you that you thought, yeah, I'm definitely making it to Cortana this year?
I think that I did have some expectations. I had a pretty good year last year. I ended with the World Championships at home in Lake Placid, and obviously that went pretty well for me. A lot of confidence, but I also knew that coming into Olympic year, people are going to show up. Everybody's dialed in mentally, physically. Their equipment is dialed in, and I knew it was going to be a dogfight. And if there is a better way to describe it, I would. But it was a dogfight. I raced the first half of the season on the World Cup, which is the tour that I was named to. And the points were sort of on the edge. Like it wasn't honestly looking great for qualifying. And after our final race in Latvia, my head coach came up to me and said, hey, we're asking everybody, we're not telling you have to go anywhere, but there are lower circuit races in Lake Placid if you want to race there. And I was like, I already booked my whole season's booked out. I don't know. I'm not sure if it makes sense. I would have to change flights and stuff like that. And he's like, well, they're all in Lake Placid and there are 3 races. And I'm like, there are 3 races in Lake Placid. I'm like, I think I got to go because I'm pretty good at Lake Placid. Obviously, I ended up winning all 3 of these races, long story short. But the points that I got from those races is what honestly qualified me. So it's kind of cool to have it come full circle.
When you realized you had qualified, and I don't know how all the points worked out, and I don't know how kind of instantaneous you knew, or if it was kind of a slow play, But what first went through your mind when you found out for sure?
I had just mentioned this to somebody else today. I almost felt like there was something wrong with me originally because I didn't really have the emotions that I thought I was going to have. I didn't have this like fist pumping, jumping up and down. I was kind of like almost, I was in a little bit of shock. I was almost like this can't really be real. It almost felt like a goal that I wasn't really chasing at one point. I was like, was this actually my goal? Like, what's happening right now? And then I started messaging people that had been supporting me, friends that I knew in Orlando before I decided to try out for this sport, people that I worked with, people that had been there from the beginning. And they were texting me and they're like, man, I remember when you were sitting on my couch and you told us you were going to try out for this thing. And all of a sudden my eyes started like watering. I'm like trying to tilt my head back because I couldn't believe what was happening. I think when you're in it so much, you kind of forget about the impact that it's having, and you almost forget what goals you're searching for because your goals are so day to day. You kind of forget about the Olympics, or you forget about these other things. You're just like, I need to fix my sled today, or I'm going to work on my runners tomorrow. Everything is so one step, and then whenever the floodgates open, man, it opens.
We are with Olympian Danie Barefoot, who will compete with the USA in Cortina this year in the skeleton. You told me that usually the US gets one sled in for skeleton. This year, you guys got two in, and you got that second seat. How rare is that for the US to have that second seat, and what determines that?
So interestingly enough, skeleton has been brought back into the Olympics in 2002. It was taken out for like 50 years before that for whatever safety reasons.
Your face is, I don't have to tell you this. You understand this, but your face is right there, right?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, for whatever reason, they had it out. But since 2002, the U.S. has actually been in a decent spot. And Beijing was the first time we only had one sled. So on the contrary, it's actually more common for us to have two. In the past, I think we at one point had three sleds because that's the max you can have. But as any sport goes, the more countries compete, the more popular sports get. Funding starts pumping into these countries. Germany Germany and China just throw money into their sport, and it shows. Those are the two. There are two countries that get three sleds, and those are the two. So I think for what the funding that we get, I think honestly the U.S. is doing pretty good.
What is your now timeline as you get set to go back to Europe and compete?
Oh, it is happening fast. Tomorrow morning at 7:30, I'm leaving here. I haven't packed my suitcase yet. I was trying to get my sled ready right now before this meeting. As soon as I land in Munich, I'm going to stay overnight, and then we're going to drive down to Innsbruck in Austria. We're going to have like a 2.5-week training camp, drive over to St. Moritz, Switzerland, which is, I don't know. You can look it up geographically. They're all kind of near each other, but they're like 5 hours apart.
Yeah.
We're going to train there for like a week. Then we're going to drive down to Milan, and that's where we're going to have the Team USA athlete welcome experience, which is going to be pretty cool, I think, for everybody. But for me, because, first timer. And they're going to give us, I heard, like 3 duffel bags worth of clothes, which I think is going to quadruple my wardrobe because I'm not a huge clothes guy. They're going to tell you exactly what you need to wear when. I heard that, there are going to be people there tailoring your stuff. The moment you try it on, they're like, all right, take it off. We're going to tailor it quick. Do that whole shebang. And then we're going to take a bus back to Cortina and kick it off. And so by January 31st, I'll be in Cortina.
Well, I think this is one of the coolest things we've heard from someone from this area doing. Making the Olympics is so many kids' dream. They grow up wanting it to be it. You wanted to build buildings and build cities. Now you are hoping to build a collection of Olympic medals. What is your ultimate goal now that you are in the games, and what would qualify as a success for you here this winter?
It might sound a little corny, but I feel like the success for me would be just knowing that I'm representing everybody who's helped along the way. Because the further you get into this, the less it becomes about you. There are so many things that have to go right outside of you. And you realize, like, even if you did your absolute best and you never had a bad run, you still want to make it, because there's more to it than that. Like there's so many layers financially, emotional support, people rooting for you, people sharing your story, trying to get more sponsors. All of these things are usually happening, and it's not me that's doing it. My parents really, for this quad really ran with a lot of this stuff, and it's helped a lot. We lean on teammates and friends, and so I just want to go there and smile about everything I'm being a part of. Not take anything too seriously. Obviously, I want to do my best. I'm not going to slack, but really appreciate the moment.
How can people help support your journey?
Oh, just share it, spread the word. I think it's exciting. I don't know. Growing up, I always liked when there was like a big name in Johnstown. Whether it was like an indoor football league or something. There's always this big name that everybody wanted to go watch. Granted, you can't come out and watch me as easily, but I think it's cool, and it'd be really exciting for me to kind of be a part of that Johnstown history.
I think we'll all be tuning in, though, this winter during the Olympics. He is Danie Barefoot, Olympian Danie Barefoot. He's going to be competing in the skeleton. He's from Johnstown. Daniel, I really appreciate you hopping on. Now go pack the sled. Go pack your bags. You got a flight to catch in the morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Dan.